right, so tonight we're going to be doing Vajrasattva. So, and I hope everybody's got that text that I sent everybody. So, the way we start is we use the same text that we use for the purification. For the refuge process practice. So we do the same thing. And as a matter of fact, then we would do 3 prostrations. You can do more if you want, but you should do prostrations, and then begin the Vajrasattva practice. Okay, so if you don't mind, I'll start with the opening prayers and everything. So I'll do it quickly. So we start. So if you have the refuge part, if you've got that, and then you've got the Vajrasattva part, if you've got that, then we're going to use those 2 texts, going from one to the other.
Are you just using the regular prayer book?
No, I'm using the red refuge.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, sorry.
One that we've been using.
I got it. Hey, I'm ready.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, I'm going to start on page 1 with the introduction to keep our mindfulness on what it is that we're doing. For the benefit of all sentient beings, the most gracious Buddha Shakyamuni spoke the Dharma through the sutras and tantras. The 5 profound paths of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa are the essence of the Buddha's teachings, which enable one to attain enlightenment even in one lifetime. However, to practice the path of Mahamudra and the 6 yogas of Naropa, one must be fully convinced of the 4 ways of turning the mind, or the 4 ordinary foundations. The 4 ways of turning the mind are the basis for the successful practice of any of the yanas. Then one practices the 4 extraordinary foundations, or the Vajranyana Ngondro, to purify the negative karma and obscurations of the mind, speech, and body, and to develop virtues. The great 12th century Tibetan saint, Lord Jigten Sumgun, the 2nd Nagarjuna, said, "The Ngondro is even more important than the higher practices. One must truly understand and practice the simple yet profound foundational teachings before one begins the higher teachings." All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Dagla dangwa je be dra no par je be gega dar ba dam dam shaken be bardu jo par je ba dam shaki so je be ma nam ka dam pe sam chan tam she de wa dang dang dug now drang now du la na yak bar zo pe jeng ju brin po she to par sha. Dagla dangwa je pe dra no par je pe gaga tar pa dam dam shaken pe bar du jo par je pa dam shaki so je pe ma nam ka dam pe sam chan tam she de wa dang dan dog now drang now du la na yak yak par zo pe zhang shu brin po she to par sha. Excuse me. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Deshe du samagegi bardu lu nagi samge wala kol mashe bardu lu nagi samge wala kol du de ring ne song de ta samgi bardu lu nag samge wala kol. Page 4. All sentient beings, limitless as the sky, take refuge in the glorious kind Lama Vajradhara, embodiment of the body, speech, and mind, qualities and activities of the Buddhas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, source of the 84,000 categories of the teachings and Lord of the Sanghas. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Namke Dadam Yampe Samchen Tamshe Chokshu Du Samgi Daishin Sekpa Tamshe Gi Kusong Tong Yonchen Trinle Tamshe Ki No Warjur Pa Choki Pompo Tonjaka Chu Tache Jungne Papege Dun Tamshe Gi Nadag Trinsenza Wadangur Parje Pe Pao Dan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio Yadam Kilgorgi La Sok Nam La Kapsu Chio Sange Jom Dende Nam La Kapsu Chio Dampejo Nam La Kapsu Chio Papege Dun Nam La Kapsu Chio Pawoka Jocho Kyo Me Shong Yashegi Jeng Den Dempa Nam La Kapsu Chio Trinzenza Wadangur Parje Pe Pao Dan Lama Dampa Nam La Kapsu Chio Yadam Kilgorgi La Sok Nam La Kapsu Chio Sange Jom Dende Nam La Kapsu Chio Dampejo Nam La Kapsu Chio Papege Dun Nam La Kapsu Chio Pawoka Jojo Kyo Me Shong Yashegi Jeng Den Dempa Nam La Kapsu Chio. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma, and likewise in the assembly of the Bodhisattvas. As the previous Buddhas embraced the enlightened mind and progressed on the Bodhisattva's path, I too, for the benefit of all sentient beings, give birth to bodhicitta and apply myself to accomplish the stages of the path. Shangshub Ning Porchi Gi Bar Zange Nam La Kapsu Chi Do Dang Shangshub Zempa Yi So Lende Shin Kapsu Shi Shitai Nongi De Shegi Shangshub Dugni Ki Ba Dang Shangshub Zempe La Pa La De Dagrim Shin Ne Pa Dar De Shindro La Pandandu Shangshub Semni Gi Gi Shing De Shindu Ni La Pa La Rimpa Shindu La Pa Ji O Shangshub Ning Porchi Gi Bar Zange Nam La Kapsu Chi Cho Dang Sheng Shub Zempa Yi So Lende Shin Kapsu Shi Shitai Nongi De Shegi Sheng Shub Dugni Ki Ba Dang Sheng Shub Zempe La Pa La De Dagrim Zen Ne Pa Dar De Shindro La Pandandu Sheng Shub Zemni Gi Gi Shing De Shindu Ni La Pa La Rimpa Shindu La Pa Ji O. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Sangye cho dangzo gizo namla zhengzhu bardu dagni kapsuji dagijin soki peso namgi jo lapanjir zenge ju par shok sangye cho dangzo gizo namla zhengzhu bardu dagni kapsuji dagijin soki peso namgi jo lapanjir zenge ju par shok. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. Manam kadam yam pesim jentam she de wa deng de we gur deng dem bojur jig do now deng do now gi gu deng dra warjur jig do now me pe de wa deng mi dra warjur jig ne ring jak deng ni deng dra we deng namla ne parjur jig. Manam kadam yam pesim jentam she de wa deng de we gur deng dem bojur jig do now deng do now gi gu deng dra warjur jig. Dug now may pay de wa dang mi dra warjur jig ne ring jak dang ni dang dra way dang namla ne par ji. Whatever merit I've gathered through prostration, offering, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Chak sa wa dang chak sing so ba dang jay su yi rang gol sing so wa yi ge wa jung se da gi ji sak ba tam se so bei zhang shub shir no. 4 ways of turning the mind. Oh, this kind of leisure and endowment is supremely difficult to obtain. When we obtain this body, which is easily lost, do not waste it meaninglessly, but rather use it to attain the ultimate liberation, joyous result. Short contemplation on precious human life. Next. The nature of all phenomena is impermanence. Death is a certainty to all who are born. Death can descend any time like a drop of morning dew on a blade of grass. Quick, it is time to make effort for the essence of the Dharma. Contemplate impermanence. Next, the fruit of one's positive karma is happiness. Suffering is the fruit of negative karma. The inexorable karmic causation is the mode of abiding of all dharmas. Henceforth, practice the Dharma by distinguishing between what should be practiced and what should be given up. Contemplate karma, cause and result. Next, number 4. In the 3 lower realms and even in the 3 higher ones, there is not an instant of absolute happiness. I will avoid the root cause of my samsaric existence and practice the excellent path of peace to enlightenment. Contemplate the suffering of samsara. Okay. Oma, a, I, o, vi, li, o, ang, a, ga, na, za, na, da, na, da, na, ba, ma, yawa, la, wa, sa, ha, sa, so, ha. Oma, a, I, o, vi, li, o, ang, a, ga, na, za, na, da, na, da, na, ba, ma, yawa, la, wa, sa, ha. Kriya soha. Oma a I, o, vi, li, o, ang, a, ga, na, za, na, da, na, ba, ma, yawala, wa, sa, ha, kriya soha. Om Yudame Hetu Pabawa Hetu Tagan Tadagato Eo Takaso Yudorada Evumari Mashimani Soha Om Yudame Hetu Pabawa Hetu Tagan Tadagato Eo Takaso Yudorada Evumari Mashimani Soha Om Yudame Hetu Pabawa Hetu Tagan Tadagato Eo Takaso Yudorada Evumari Mashimani Soha. All phenomena arise from causes. Those causes have been taught by the Tathagata. The cessation too has been proclaimed by the great ascetic, the Shamaniye. So be it. So ha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, help to protect my vow to purify myself. May you remain firm with me. Grant me the complete satisfaction. Grow with me. Be loving towards me. Grant me the attainments to master the powers beyond body and nature. Show me all the deeds of body, speech, and mind. Make my mind heart good, virtuous, and auspicious. Revel in the bliss of the four joys, O Blessed One, who embodies the essence within me. Do not abandon me. Grant me the realization of the indestructible nature. Make me one with you. Thus I signify my unity with non-duality. Ah. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Saratada Gata Bajrama Me Mansa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Tenopa Dristadredo Me Bhava Sutokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anuraktu Me Bhava Sara Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sara Karma Sitsa Me Sitsantriya Kuruham Ha 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 ho Bhagavan Sara Tadagata Bajrama Me Mansa Bajri Bhava Maha Samaya Satwaha. Arising from a defiled mind, be reborn in the great wisdom. Arising from a defiled mind, be reborn in the great wisdom. Arising from a defiled mind, be reborn in the great wisdom. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Mahazambahong. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Mazabahong. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Mazabahong. Om Sambar Sambar Bimanasar Mazambahong. 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 Om, arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Arising from defiled lives, remember and purify the flower of wisdom. Om Smar Smar Bimanaskar Mazabahung Pam 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 Smar Smar Bimanaskar Mazabahung Pam. Arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. All arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. Arising great holy wisdom, purify this life. Om Richi Om Sambar Sambar Bimana Om Sambar Sambar Mahazambu Hung Pe 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 Om Sambar Sambar Mahazambu Hong Pe. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to perfection, purification. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the precious Dharma protectors, whose mirror-like wisdom is the door to purification. Om Richi Ramana Pravadai Hong Pe, 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 Om Richi Ramana Pravadai Hong Pe. The body, speech, and mind the body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. Ultimate wisdom is pure love. The body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. The body, speech, and mind of pure love is ultimate wisdom. Om Shri Pamanurtishvari Hong. Om Ri 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 Pamanurtishvari Hong. Om Ahung, 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 Om With one pointed mind, take refuge in the three jewels. Meditate the surroundings as inseparable from a Buddha field. In the space in front of me is a lion throne on which are a lotus, sun, and moon disk seat, in the center of which sits the kind root lama in the form of Vajradhara with the 7 characteristics. Blue in color, 2 arms, holding a Vajra and bell, crossed at the heart and gracefully sitting in the Vajra position. Adorned by the silken robes and various precious jewel ornaments, surrounded by all the lineage lamas. In front of the lion throne is the Yidam Shakasamvara, the male and female aspects in union, whose manifestation is simultaneously appearance and emptiness. At the right side of the throne is the assembly of the Buddhas of the 3 times, possessing all the auspicious signs of a Buddha, together with the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate kalpa. Behind the throne is the Prajnaparamita, proclaiming the relative and ultimate meaning of the 3 yanas. To the left of the throne is the assembly of the compassionate Bodhisattvas, surrounded by the Sangha of the 3 yanas. Around the base of the throne are the Dharmapalas, an ocean of guardians gathered like clouds. Go back to page 25, Tibet. Nei Kang Wo Min Shin Dang Yer Me Pe Rang Tun Seng Sem Chen Pe Ma Ni De Tang Usu Trin Shen Sa Wei La Ma Ni Yan Lag Dun Dun Den Dur Je Chang Gi So No Sang Chagni Dur Drill To Kark No Shabni Dorje Kiltong Yin Sul Chok Dar Chang Dardang Rinshen Na Sok Yen Gize Gupe Se Nyen Nam Dag Tab Chik Chok Dondu Yidam Korlo Dewa Chok Yabyom Nang Sok Song Chok Nam Suk So Yasu Du Som Sangye Shen Perden Kao Sang Sangye Tong Tang Len Jig So Gab Tu Se Rab Paro Chin Pe Yom Dragne Teksum Choki Na Ro Shok Yon Du Se Den Chang Sub Sem Pe Shok Teksum Ge Dun Nam Gi Yong Su Kor Tri Yi Sam Tu Dampa Cho Kyung Wei Song Ma Gyat So Trin Trig Da Burgyur. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge, for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we all migrators go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Buddhas, Dharma, Sanghas, Yidams, and Dharma protectors, to these supreme objects of refuge, for protection from the hordes of suffering of samsara, we all migrators go for refuge until enlightenment is attained. Sangye Chocho Yidam Chokyong Che Kapchog nam la tak sok joka wakun. Si pe je jog nam ga le kyob chir. Changshu mato bardu kapsu chi. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now on until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow the path to the ultimate goal. I rejoice when all sentient beings are happy and free from the samsaric suffering and swiftly attain ultimate Buddhahood. For this purpose, from now on until I achieve enlightenment, I will follow the path to the ultimate goal. Drokon de den dugnal drawadan, nor du la me topar dagawe. De chir dange changshu ma tobar, ne pe dong chog lam la chog pa ja. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians. Whoops, sorry. Wait a minute, my pages got whacked out.
30?
Page 30. Page got out of order. We take refuge in the kind root Lama and lineage Lamas. We take refuge in the deities of the mandalas of the Yidams. We take refuge in all the exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble Dakas, Dakinis, and Dharma guardians, possessors of the eye of wisdom. So now we'll do 3 prostrations. During your regular practice, you have time, you do more. Chunsan Salwa Dan Gurpo, Jepe Badan Lama, Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio,
Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha.
Sangye Chon Dende Namla Kapsu Chio.
To enlightenment reach for the sake of all sentient beings. Take refuge in the Dharma until enlightenment reach for all sentient beings. I take refuge in the Sangha until enlightenment reach for the sake of all sentient beings. Take refuge in the Buddha until enlightenment reach for the sake of all sentient beings.
Sangye Chon Dende Namla Kapsu Chio. The Pedro Namla Kapsu Chio, Pepege Du Namla Kapsu Chio. Woga Ju to Donation Yeshigi, Chengdeng Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Trinsen Sawa Dan Gurpo, Jepe Patan Lama Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. Idam Gurgi La Sum Namla Kapsu Chio. Sangye Chon Dende Namla Kapsu Chio. The Pedro Namla Kapsu Chio, Pepege Du Namla Kapsu Chio. Woga Ju to Donation Yeshigi, Chengdeng Dampa Namla Kapsu Chio. So I did 3 recitations, 6 prostrations. Now we touch our breath, meditate, contemplate, and we become one with the lineage tree. And all the deities, all the masters of the lineage tree, all dissolve into us. We become one with the lineage. Okay, now we go to the Vajrasattva text. So, Vajrasattva's name in Sanskrit means the indestructible holy being. Vajrasattva, indestructible. Vajra, Sat is a being, and Sattva is a holy being, the indestructible holy being. Vajrasattva. His name in Tibetan is Dorje Sempa. Oh. Sorry, I'll move my microphone.
It helps a lot. Thanks.
All right, so his, do I need to repeat what I just said about the Sanskrit name?
Dorje Sempa. Got that.
Right, so Dorje Sempa is his Tibetan name. Okay, so we know that we're told. So here is the Vajrasattva Dorje Sempa meditation and recitation for purification practice, the second section of the Drikung Kagyu Ngondro. So I've said before that there are several different versions of the Ngondro. This is the medium one. There's one that is a very long, a much longer one, I should say. There's this medium one, and then there's one that's quite short, that is by Garchen Rinpoche and by Chetseng Rinpoche. So this is the medium one. Okay. So now we go to page 1, the introduction to Vajrasattva meditation practice.
Lance, is the short one the one that's in the back of version 12? The new prayer book?
No. No. There's not a Ngondro practice in there that I know of.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I was thinking you were talking about just a short Vajrasattva.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay, so generally speaking, virtuous and non-virtuous acts depend on mind. The mind is the master, and the body and speech are the servants. Because of the degree of the power of afflictive emotions, controlled by the desire, hatred, and so forth, we create non-virtuous acts such as the 5 heinous karmas, the 5 close karmas, the 10 non-virtues, the breaking of vows, and the Samayas. It is non-virtue if we do these things ourselves, if we ask others to do them for us, or we rejoice when these deeds are done by others. Not only that, when the mind is under the control of desire, hatred, and so forth, even if we hear, study, and practice the precious Dharma, we create non-virtue. These non-virtues created by evil deeds will bring suffering and undesirable conditions. These non-virtues are created through conquering our enemies, protecting our relatives and friends, and protecting our own body and accumulating wealth. But we leave these things behind when we face death. However, non-virtue will follow us like a shadow, life after life, and become a source of all sufferings. Therefore, it is very wise to purify all non-virtues we create before they bring the result. This purification, if we use the 4 powers, can be very effective. The 4 powers are remorse, antidote, resolve, and reliance. In the Vajrayana path, Vajrasattva meditation is a special practice for the purification of non-virtuous causes. So with confidence and without hesitation, enter into the Vajrasattva practice. Have sincere remorse for evil deeds. Confess them and resolve not to create more negative karma, even at the risk of one's life. Then take refuge, cultivate the mind of enlightenment, recite the mantra, and meditate on emptiness as the antidote and reliance. So we're going to go back over this because this is very important. And I think maybe some people haven't heard this before, or maybe you have heard this, but it bears remembering and recollecting and refreshing our memory, because this is the essence of what the purification practice is all about. So, generally speaking, virtuous and non-virtuous acts depends on the mind. In other words, our cause is our thought. Whatever we do in the way of karma is precipitated by way of thoughts that we have. So they're either virtuous thoughts or they're non-virtuous thoughts that create that, and then we take the action, we take the karma, and then we have the result. So it's born in mind. Virtue and non-virtue is born in the mind. The mind is the master, and the body and speech are the servants. So when we say Om Ah Hum, the Buddha, the Dharma, Sangha, body, speech, and mind, what we're saying is that the body and the speech are both relative, are both phenomenal, are both subject to the brain. The mind, the big mind, here is the master. And what we're trying to do is to purify our physical body, our intellectual body, so that those heart thoughts, those pure mind heart thoughts, rise up unimpeded. Now those thoughts come up, but they get blocked up by our ego, they get blocked up by our confusions, by our misconceptions, and our habitual tendencies and so on, and we don't even realize that it's happening. So until we can really quiet our physical body, really quiet our intellectual mind, can we really recognize, begin to see that heart thoughts come up, those wisdom heart thoughts come up. So we say that they are the servants. The big mind is indestructible. The big mind is what we're trying to get to, is the Dharmakaya. So to put it in terms of the kayas, this is the Dharmakaya, this is the Sambhogakaya, and this is the Nirmanakaya. Okay? So white, red, blue. So to start making these associations, with the colors, because as we get deeper into our meditations, as we get deeper into samadhi, and the language just goes away, the intellectualization of all this goes away, and what we begin to experience are these rays of light. Light, not that we see with our eyes, but we begin to experience things, and they have a resonance to them that we begin to associate it within ourselves, and it's like light. So we say it's like light, it's penetrating. So being familiar with these colors is very important. Because of the degree of the power of afflictive emotions, and I should say that if we have a pure Dharmakaya heart, if we have a pure heart that is unblocked, then it affects the little mind, it affects the intellectual mind, and it affects the body. So the master affects the servants. The servants can block the master, but the master can purify the servants. Now, because of the degree of the power of afflictive emotions, controlled by the desire, hatred, and so forth. So the afflictive emotions, we know the afflictive emotions. Does anybody know what the afflictive emotions are? What are the 5 basic afflictive emotions?
Desire, hatred, ignorance, pride, jealousy.
Right.
Nailed it.
What was that?
Nailed it, Curtis.
All right,
I got to nail it when I can, because usually I don't.
All right. Yeah. So we need to know that. That it's part of our practice. It's part of what we need to learn to know this like the back of our hand, as we say. So, because of the degree of power of afflictive emotions controlled by desire, hatred, and so forth, we create non-virtuous acts, such as the 5 heinous karmas. Does anybody know what the 5 heinous karmas are?
Your turn, Adrian.
Yeah, thank you for passing that on to somebody else. Does anybody know what the 5 heinous karmas are?
Is killing your parents,
Yeah,
mother, father,
right.
hurting I guess a teacher or a monk or spiritual teacher, causing a schism in the sangha. What the other 2? Feel free to jump in, anybody.
Harming a Buddha.
Was it I guess destroying a statue or destroying a religious a temple or what's the last one?
Sexual misdeeds.
Section. Okay.
Okay.
Mhm.
So it's, killing a father, killing a mother, killing an arhat, destroying the Buddha, the facility of the Buddha, and sexual misconduct. So
Is
five.
schism?
What's that?
Is schism one?
Yes, you're right. Schism in the Sangha. Thank you very much. You're correct.
So let's see, that's killing parents, hurting a lama, causing a schism, destroying a temple or a Buddha, and sexual misconduct.
Correct. Sexual misconduct. Correct.
Is it defined any more clearly than just sexual misconduct?
Well, whatever sexual act that you do that is going to bring suffering to yourself or to others.
Well, some
So-
sexual misconduct is pretty heinous and some is not so heinous.
I'll leave it. Well, you can decide for yourself what you think it is, and you can suffer the consequences.
Okay, gotcha. Or rather, you got me there.
Okay. So the 5 close karmas, I was looking for that. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I should have it. Does anybody know the 5 close karmas?
The 5 what?
5 close karmas. It's written right here. It says the 5 close karmas. Sorry, I don't have it. All right, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. I promise I will. Because we're not going to get through this tonight, so the next time I'll be sure to have the answer for that. I didn't have my book here that had my notes in it. So the 5 close karmas, the 10 non-virtues. So we know the 10 non-virtues. We've studied the 10 non-virtues before. 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. Does anybody remember those? The 10 non-virtues. So 3 of the body. Okay. So this is good. Knowing, this is why we do these things, because now we need to know what we need. Now we're learning what it is that we need to know.
So the 3 with the
This is
body,
what the Ngondro is all about.
3 with the body would be killing, stealing, or taking something that's not yours, and sexual misdeeds.
Would be killing, stealing,
Mhm.
and sexual misdeeds.
Mhm. That's the
Right.
first 3 with the body.
What are the 4 of the speech?
Lying,
Harsh words.
What's
Idle
that?
talk.
What was that?
Harsh words. Idle talk.
Harsh
mhm.
speech, idle talk. And what's the other one?
Wrong views.
No.
Divisive speech.
That's the mind.
Divisive speech. So harsh words when we're yelling at somebody, or we're using swear words or something like that. We're being really harsh with somebody. Divisive is dividing people. And idle gossip. And what was the other one?
Idle talk.
idle talk. Well, that's gossip. That's
Mm.
gossip. So
Lying.
divisive, harsh, and what was
Lying.
the other one?
Lying.
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 Lying. Right, lying. So telling lies. Okay, and then what are the three of the
The mind.
mind?
The wrong views.
Wrong views is one of them, yes.
Harm.
And what is wrong views, and what is the main thing that we think of when we think of wrong view?
Ignorance.
Ignorance.
No.
It's not believing in karma, cause and effect. Is that correct?
Correct. So what's another of the three non-virtues of the mind?
Covenants.
What was it?
Is it covenants?
Greed.
Being covetous.
Covenants.
Yeah, coveting.
Covetous.
Coveting. Yes, I
Coveting.
don't pronounce that word well either. Coveting what our neighbor has, or what our brother has, or our sister has, or something like that. Yes, being covetous. And then what's the last one?
Harmful intent.
Harmful intent. Yes. Just even thinking, oh, I wish that person would die. Oh, I think, that person gets their retribution or something, they harm me. I hope that they get, hurt, in the same way or worse, something like that. So those are the 10 non-virtues. So we should know those. Okay.
All too well, I'm afraid.
Probably not too bad. Okay, the 10 non-virtues, the breaking of vows, and Samayas. So a Samaya is another way of saying a vow. When you take a promise, you make a promise to yourself, you make a promise to your lama, you make a promise to your family, whatever, that you keep your vows, you keep your promises, you keep your Samaya. That's the Samaya, or those vows. So the Samayas would be those Dharma promises, those Dharma vows that we take to fulfill our commitments and so on. When we take a practice and we say that we're going to do it, we should do it. So I know that in the empowerments, part of the practice, part of the empowerment is the commitment to do the practice. So we can't do all the practices. We might have a bunch of empowerments that we take at one time over a short period of time, and we can't fulfill all of those, but we fulfill our commitment to be doing a daily practice and to be making dedications for that daily practice and so on. That incorporates all the different empowerments, all the different practices that we do. So that would be the Samaya, the Samaya.
Hey, Lance, I had a quick question. You just mentioned empowerments. I think a while back, I think you were saying when we take empowerments, that it's that we shouldn't be taking them lightly. That when we take an empowerment, that we are almost, I don't want to say obligated, but that we should practice whatever empowerment that we take. And so, and also, I guess if we don't practice it, the lama or the kempo or whoever gave the empowerment would get the effects or the non, the effects of giving the empowerment and the people not doing the empowerment. They would get the consequences for that. So, because I remember even Kempo saying that that people shouldn't collect empowerments. That if you get it, you should try doing it. It's not something that you should take very lightly. And I remember you also emphasizing that as well.
Well, yes, that's all true, and I've heard it expressed also. That you should take the empowerments whenever you can, because you may not be able to do it, at this particular time. But, in the future, things may change. You may not have the benefit of being with a lama, but if you receive the empowerment and the three kindnesses of the empowerment, is the empowerment, the transmission, and the instructions that you can kind of reconstruct that if you've had that transmission, because it's a heart transmission. It's invisible to us. It doesn't register so much in the intellect, but it registers in our heart. So if we're taking the empowerment with that heart connection and really making a commitment to that heart connection, that Dharma Samaya, that's what I just said, to take it with that. And then if we kind of get to it, later on, well, I think that's what they're saying. That's okay. But if you're taking it and just, going out and getting drunk the day that you get it or something and doing terrible things and not paying any attention and not practicing at all in any respect, that's when the Lama gets, he receives the negativity for that, as well as yourself for not, being honest about it. So I think there has to be a tolerance, a sensibility about what the empowerment is and how it is that we take it and understand that. Does that make sense? I mean, can you see that difference? Can you see what I'm saying here?
Certainly, certainly.
I mean, otherwise, if there are periods of time when we might get 2 or 3 or 4 empowerments in a very short span, maybe even in a weekend or in a week or in a month or something like that. And it's impossible to be able to say, okay, I'm not going to do anything else but do these practices. But if you take it in and see it all as the same thing, when we say if you take one empowerment and you do one practice of one Buddha, that's got all the Buddhas included in there. So if you look at it, that it's all the same, it's all part of the same thing. Their activities are different, but you make that commitment that, yes, I will do whatever I can to do all these practices when the time is right, when the time comes right for me.
Thank you.
I did a quick search for 5 close karmas and came up with nothing quickly.
I've got it in my notes, and I'm sorry I don't have it right now.
Yeah, but I did find, I think we're a little off on the 5 heinous sins. We covered them, but I saw it in several places. Mother, father, arhat, killing, shedding the blood of a Buddha, and causing a schism. Those are the 5.
Schism. Okay. So
Yes,
shedding the blood of a Buddha implies the facilities of the Buddhas and so on like that. It's included with that. So if you go and you wreck a shrine room or something like that, or a temple, something like that, or you destroy, paintings or books or something like that. Okay, thank you for the clarification. You're right.
No, it doesn't mention sexual impropriety anyway.
Okay, well that was and that came into the 10 non-virtues. We said that in the 10 non-virtues. Okay. So the breaking of vows and Samayas. It is non-virtue if we do these things ourselves, or if we ask others to do them for us, or we rejoice when these deeds are done by others. So, to say, okay, I'm not going to, go and destroy the army of these people who are waging, hatred towards us, but I'll send the 19-year-olds and they can do it. It's your karma that you abide by that you allow that to happen in whatever way that you do that, especially if you rejoice in that. So we take responsibility if we do it ourselves, if we have other people do it for us, or if we rejoice in others doing it, but we didn't have a direct contact in making that karma happen. Okay? Not only that, when the mind is under the control of desire and hatred and so forth, in other words, the 5 afflictions, the 5 of poisons, even if we hear, study, and practice the precious Dharma, we create non-virtue. So what this is saying, when the mind is under the control of the five poisons, even if we hear, study, and practice the precious Dharma, we create non-virtue. So in other words, the fact that we're doing Dharma, that we're being a practitioner, that we're taking this in, we're learning this and so on, doesn't take away our responsibility for these afflictive emotions, for the causes of these afflictive emotions. If we allow them to manifest in our lives, if we bring suffering as a result of them. Does that make sense? So we can't rationalize, oh, I'm a Dharma practitioner, so if I have these thoughts, if I do these things, I'll be absolved of any responsibility.
Well, Lance, but to some extent, we're all under the, afflictive emotions on a daily basis. So more or less, to some degree. So what does that mean for the practice?
You got a lot of work to do.
Right. But in the same sense that we're using Dharma to purify that, right?
We're using Dharma to purify that so we don't do that. But if we rationalize doing those things and saying I'll be absolved because I'm a Dharma practitioner, that's wrong.
Okay, that makes sense.
No, especially knowing what we know as a Dharma practitioners, and we still go through with the actions or the thoughts of hatred and greed or and anger, isn't the consequence even that much greater?
Well,
Because
it could be. I would think maybe so. Yeah. I mean, I can't make that, determination in every case. But yeah, for me personally, yeah.
Yeah.
There's lots of mitigating circumstances, and we talk about that. Later on, we're not going to get into all the detail of that, all the mitigating circumstances that we've talked about it before. What is it that makes a karma? What is it that produces a karma? And you have to have the opportunity. You have to have the object of the opportunity. You have to do the deed. You have to do the action, and you have to be happy for it. But if there's mitigating circumstances, unintentional, that you did something unintentionally and so on like that, it lessens it. But by how much and so on, it starts splitting hairs, very finely and so on. But nevertheless, there is always responsibility.
Sure, it's like walking around and killing 1,000 insects unintentionally, and then another, going out and actually picking up a gun and going hunting down an animal. One's intentional and one's not intentional. So I guess, but the end result is still the same, that you created death. But I guess the consequences might be a little lighter, but there's still responsibility there, right?
Sure. And many devout Buddhists, they'll be walking along in the woods or walking along on the grass, the lawn or something like that, and reciting Om Mani Padme Hung, Om Mani Padme Hung, Om Mani Padme Hung, or Teata Om Bigazi Bigazi Ma Bigazi Bigazi Raza Samogate Soha, because they know every time they put their foot down, there's a strong possibility they're going to be destroying a worm or destroying an ant or some other animals that live in the ground.
Yes, I mean, that's a practice that I learned or years and years ago. Before you even leave the house, you say a prayer for whatever insects or whatever animals that you unintentionally kill, and that you hope that insect or the animal would be reborn, hopefully next time, as a precious human being.
Yeah, to be more and more aware of that. The culture in which you were raised, really, that was a common thread that was going through your culture and everything. Those of us, that grew up, as children in the West, we didn't think about things like that. We weren't taught things about that. At least most of us. I certainly wasn't.
There's a level of complexity to this, though, Lance, and I don't know where to come down on, because the animals, of course, eat each other. They are each other's commissary.
That's right.
And here in Fairfax County, for instance, and I don't want to get too far afield here, but just to make the point that sometimes it's not that simple. There are more deer in Fairfax County now than there were when George Washington was here, and they have to have annual archery deer kills because they're overrunning their food supply. And thanks to us, their natural predators, the coyotes and eastern gray wolf, are gone. So what moral Buddhist decision, where do you come down as a Buddhist in regarding the fact that there are deer kills? Do you let that, and they give the venison to homeless shelters and stuff like that, do you let that go forward with approval? Do you just ignore it? Do you consider it at all? It's happening in the real world.
Well, I think it's the same thing with going home and having a steak dinner, or going out to a restaurant and having a hamburger, or anything, a chicken sandwich or whatever, you have, is that when you do your prayer, your food prayer, that you also are saying a prayer of liberation, that you are liberating that being, and that being is coming into you, and you are using that energy, that being, to be able to sustain your Dharma practice. So in a way, you're helping that being, and in that way. So that's maybe a rationalization or something you can call that. But the more that we become mindful that, yes, I'm eating this meat, I'm eating this that came from an animal, and to be, and am I doing this in a proper way? Am I doing a liberation for this? And do I need to eat this? Am I wasting it or anything like that? So it's having a respect for these things. In Tibet, for instance, they eat meat all the time because they have to, because they don't grow, their own food. It's arid up there. It's very cold and so on. So they eat meat, and but they have this liberation ceremony in their prayers and so on. So there has to be some common sense that has to be applied to all this, but it should always be done in the light that all this is precious life, that there is all precious life that is involved. We are precious human life, but the animals have life too. They have Buddha nature within them too. They're ignorant of it. They're totally ignorant of it. So through our taking that in, we're doing something to continue that continuum, that tantra, that they're becoming useful, for the sake of human beings. So these non-virtues created by evil deeds will bring suffering and undesirable conditions. So these non-virtues are created through conquering our enemies, protecting our relatives and friends, and protecting our own body and accumulating wealth. So we have rationalizations why we create these sufferings, taking people's lives and doing evil deeds towards them that have been, we've mentioned in the 5 heinous acts and the 5 close karmas we have to define, and the 10 non-virtues, but we have ways of justifying that in our intellectual mind, and we have to be able to understand and get over that. Not get over it by forgetting it, but by changing our attitude towards it. By changing our attitude towards it, being more mindful, being more responsible, and recognizing the phenomenal nature as pure. All this stuff is all pure. All these animals are pure. All the insects are pure. All the trees and everything, all that is pure. we're the ones who take it and contaminate it with our confusions and with our evil deeds and so on. So this practice of purification, you see, is the process of doing that. While we're reciting this mantra, while we're taking the time to do these 100,000 recitations and so on, this is the kind of stuff, these are the kind of thoughts that are going around. It's impossible for us to fixate, one pointedly on just the mantra. But we're thinking about, well, how does this affect this? How does it affect that? We're bringing all these things in, and it's through that purification. We're purifying our physical body, we're purifying our thoughts, and we're purifying our heart thoughts all at the same time. So we're purifying our wisdom as well as purifying our body and our deeds. So we're fine-tuning everything like this. So it's very transformative. So, and we can rationalize this by saying, oh, I'm doing this to protect my family. I'm doing this to protect others. I'm doing this because I need to be able to have enough money to retire on, or I have enough money to be able to spend on my children and grandchildren or something. We use those as rationalizations for the negative things that we do and so on. So we have to take responsibility for that too. So then it says, we leave these things behind when we face death. So all these deeds, all this karma that we create, now when we die, now all this stuff, what happens to all this stuff gets imprinted onto our psyche, if you will, onto our spiritual body. And we call this the Alaya consciousness when we talked about the 8 consciousnesses a couple months ago. And we talked about the storehouse that is like the soul. So if we allow that to manifest in that way, then all those imprints stay with us and they continue and allow us to manifest in the next life and so on. That we're reborn as another human being, or we're reborn in the hell realms, or whatever realms and so on that we're reborn in. So what we are doing at the time of death, what our last moments of life are like, is a huge part of what we take into our death and take into the bardo of reality that comes after the bardo of death. And all the connection that we make with all the karma that we've made. It says when we go into the bardo, in the bardo total, it says that we become a mental body. A mental body. Not a spiritual body. If we go into the bardo of death, and we pass through the bardo of death and go into the bardo of reality with a spiritual body, with a pure spiritual body, then there's no mental body. We go right away to the Pure Land. We go right away to Amitabha or Shenrezig or Toshida Heaven or Dewa-chan or whatever deity. We go right away. There's no mental process involved because our heart is here. But if we don't make it, if we don't do that, then we become this mental body. And the mental body now is going through all the karma, is being blown by the karma winds. The spiritual body has no karma. So we have overcome the attachment or the aversion to the alaya consciousness. We have transcended the consciousness. In the teaching that we had about that, it was the everyday consciousness and primordial awareness. If we go to the Buddha fields, It's primordial awareness. It's unborn. But if it's everyday consciousness, we go back into a mental state. And then we go through all the vicissitudes that we go through as a mental body. And we have
Lance,
to go
what
through
is, when you say spiritual body, could you elaborate on that? Tie it into the three kayas?
the Dharmakaya.
It's the Dharmakaya? Okay.
The Sambhogakaya and the Nirmanakaya are phenomenal bodies. Okay, so then the next sentence says, however, non-virtue will follow us like a shadow, life after life, and become a source of all sufferings. Therefore, it is very wise to purify all non-virtues we create before they bring the result. So this is, if we allow this to happen, then this alaya consciousness, this storehouse consciousness, this soul, so to speak, is what we are attached to. This is why we get into the bardo of reality. We feel that we can't go to the Pure Land because we're not purified enough. So we cower in the light. We're not able to stand up to that. So it's our non-virtue. Why wouldn't we do that? It's because of our non-virtue. We're thinking about our non-virtue more than we are about the freedom to be able to be the Pure Land, to be the Buddha. So we do that in this life. To think that we're going to do this in the bardo is full of expectation of a very difficult way and takes a great deal of training. And we should do that. We should do that. But we practice that every day so that when we die, we don't even recognize that we died. We're already in Dharmakaya. We can say, oh, my body, I don't have my body anymore. If we could think in those terms. But of course we don't. But if we do think in those terms, it means that we're still attached. We're a mental body. So we've got to get to the point of being in that non-conceptual state of mind. Vajradhara that we talk about all the time. Samantapadra that we talk about all the time. Bodhicitta that we talk about all the time. So therefore, it is very wise to purify all non-virtues we create before they bring the result. So we have to recognize the non-virtues when we create them. And we have to purify them right away. So this purification, if we use the 4 powers, can be very effective. The 4 powers are remorse, antidote, resolve, and reliance. There's another word for antidote is remedy. So you can think of the 4 R's. The remorse, the remedy, the resolve, and the reliance. It says in the Vajrayana path, Vajrasattva meditation is a special practice for the purification of non-virtuous causes. So with confidence and without hesitation, enter into the Vajrasattva practice. So the remorse, as soon as you recognize that you told a lie, or as soon as you recognize that you took a life, or as soon as you recognize that you created some suffering in your life or in someone else's life, you recognize that, and immediately, you have remorse for it. Say, oh, I wish I didn't do that. I'm sorry I did that. I've tried so hard not to do that, but I continue to do that. And when my anger comes up, and I feel like, throwing something or I start yelling at somebody or something like that. And immediately, do you feel bad about it? Or does it take, an hour for you to get there, or the next day you get there, or something like that? Whatever it is, you have remorse for it. You see, oh, I wish I didn't do that. So we have remorse for the non-virtue. And then the remedy for the non-virtue, the antidote for the non-virtue, is you have to understand what the non-virtue was, what the cause of it is, and then we, as the five poisons, and then we need to apply the antidotes that we've learned about already. So if it's ignorance, what's the antidote for ignorance?
Wisdom,
What was that?
wisdom,
Well, how do you get wisdom?
Education.
Education. Education. Delusion. What's the antidote for delusion? Education. Not allowing yourself to be deluded. What's the antidote for hatred?
Love, bodhicitta.
Well, loving kindness. Loving kindness specifically. What's the antidote for desire?
Generosity.
No, not exactly. For desire. What is desire? What are other words for desire?
attachment.
Attachment. Yes. So the antidote for desire is meditation, is kind of stepping away, having method, having compassion to be able to step away is the way that we do that. Having the skillful means to be able to do that, to allow the wisdom to come together with the compassion, for stepping away. So, okay, I'm gonna get out of the situation as quickly as I can to allow the wisdom to come back up into our mind stream. So what's the antidote for greed? Adrian?
That would be generosity.
Right. And then what's the antidote for jealousy?
Joy,
What?
joy,
Sympathetic joy,
joy,
Joy? No.
sympathetic joy,
No. What's another way of saying, what is the wisdom that comes from overcoming jealousy? Remember that? The wisdom of Amagog City. The all-accomplishing
Compassion.
wisdom. So the way that we overcome jealousy is through our unimpededness, our dauntlessness, our being able to face any challenge with courage. So this is all resolve. You see, this is the resolve to be able to do these things, to be able to look at these things, to be able to recognize what it is that I did, and then what it is that is going to help me to overcome. What is going to be the antidote to that? What is going to be the medicine for that? What is going to be the remedy for that? So all the things that we've been talking about, now you see are coming to bear now. We're really getting down to it. This is the Ngondro. This is the 4 inner purifications, the 4 inner preliminaries to make ourselves proper vessels so that we can really recognize, take in the Dharma, to be able to understand what the Dharma means, to be able to become deities. The deities don't purify us. We purify ourselves through the help of the deities. They're not absorbing our negativity. They're not absorbing our non-virtue. They're showing us a way to overcome that. And then what we ultimately do is just cut it off. You know, we begin to cut ourselves off. So Vajrayogini and all the Dakinis, you know, not all of them, but a lot of the Dakinis have that hooked knife in their hands, and they're cutting off the root of non-virtue. So remorse, the antidote, and then the resolve. The resolve is not to do this again. You know, to say, I'm not going to do this again. You know, I really don't want to do it, and I'm going to do everything in my power not to do it. I'm really going to practice. I'm going to think about this. This is a teaching moment for me. And maybe I've had this teaching moment, I have it once a month. Once a month, I do the same thing over and over again. Or maybe it's once a year, or maybe it's every day. But I'm going to resolve. I'm really resolved. I want to stop this. I got to stop lying. I got to stop, you know, hurting people. I got to stop getting angry. I got to stop stealing, whatever it is. I got to stop doing this. And I have the resolve. I'm really going to work at it. And every time I fail, I'm gonna have remorse for it. I'm gonna apply the remedy, and I'm gonna take more remorse for it. We have to practice our diligence with this. The the 6 paramitas all come to bear on this. This is a Vajrayana practice. Ngondro is a Vajrayana practice. I don't think they practice this in Mahayana. But in Mahayana, we do learn and practice the 6 paramitas. So now we're taking the Mahayana practice of the 6 paramitas and we're bringing it to bear in the Vajrayana to attain the wisdom of the Buddha. We were talking about this last night, or 2 nights ago. We were talking about Mahamudra. So the resolve, the perseverance, the resolve to do this. And we do it with loving kindness, we do it with compassion, we do it with joy, and we do it with equanimity. We're not going to go and take, you know, the leather straps, and we're not going to be flagellating ourselves. We're not going to be punishing ourselves in that way that you know, other traditions might do. We have tolerance, and we have loving kindness and compassion, joy and equanimity. We do this with bodhicitta. This becomes a opportunity to practice bodhicitta. So we wouldn't do it for ourselves, and we don't do it for others. You know, right now, Vajrasattva, we're seeing ourselves as Vajrasattva, this indestructible holy being. We want to be, this is our aspiration, to be Vajrasattva. As a matter of fact, in the Bardo Todal, the hero, the being that is going through the experience of the Bardo Todal is Vajrasattva. We see ourselves as Vajrasattva, the Samaya being who is going through this whole experience. And we've been there many times. We've talked about, we've been born many times, we've died many times. We've been here many times. But maybe we haven't had this clarity to be able to really focus. We haven't had this light to be able to illuminate what all this means. Yes.
Lance, I find that very interesting. I'm sure I heard something, but I've forgotten it. Why is Vajrasattva so central to the Bardo Thodal? I mean, that's something. There's something to that. Could you talk about that?
Well, I just said it. What is the practice of Vajrasattva?
But how does purification relate to being in the Bardo?
When you're in the Bardo, you've got a choice. The choices are virtue or non-virtue. It's duality, right? If there's no choice, because you have attained non-dualistic wisdom, then you're completely pure. You are a Buddha. But if you're not, if you're still in dualistic nature, then you still have work to do. And what is the work that you have to do? Purification, to become non-dualistic.
But are you doing any purification when you're in the bardo?
You're not doing purification, you are remembering your teachings. And either the teachings and the practices that you have developed, cultivated, while you were in your ordinary life and your the bardo of living, you either remember them, recall them, and are able to stabilize them and then liberate yourself into the Buddha field. Or you're struggling in the bardo. This is the struggling in the bardo, is going through that and not being able to be resourceful enough to be able to stabilize those teachings. And so you increasingly get frustrated. You're increasingly falling down. But there's increasing more Buddhas there to help you. There's the Harukas, there's the Dakinis, there's the Matara, there's the Pasachi, there's the Yoginis, there's all these beings that are there to help you to remember. And if you don't have, the essence of that within you, then there's nothing for you to remember. So you just kind of fall through the cracks. You just kind of fall through the sieve and you become born again.
I think it's kind of like you're kind of like floating, being pushed by your karmic winds.
That's true. And that's a mental body. That's right. But if there's no karmic winds, if you have transcended your karmic winds, then you're immediately, you are enlightened. You are beyond. You are non-dual. You are Buddha. You are in the Buddha field. So again, we practice that in every meditation that we do. Every practice that we do is a rehearsal for that. Our purification. To see ourselves. So Vajrasattva is the Buddha of purification, and shows us how to do that. There's a Bodhisattva that we talked about a few weeks ago, the 8 great Bodhisattvas, and there is the Bodhisattva Sarvanarayana Vishkaben, who is the Bodhisattva of purification. And what that is characterizing for us is the human quality that we can do this. And we need to pull on that resource. We need to pull on that energy. We need to use that. We need to bring it up so that we can purify ourselves and become Vajrasattva. Vajrasattva is a Buddha. Vajrasattva is purified. Yes. So that's all the resolve, that I'm going to do this. I want to do this. I'm gonna, now comes the reliance. How am I going to do this? What can I rely on to help me to do this? So what do you think the answer to that is? Tom?
Practice,
Practice.
practice, practice, practice.
Practice, practice, practice. That's what stabilizes it within ourselves. The reliance on the practice. the reliance on our faith, the reliance on our bodhicitta, the reliance on the Dharma teachings, a whole plethora of what it is to intellectualize Buddha nature and to bring it into our heart, and that we become the embodiment of that. That our body, speech, and mind becomes the practice of that. That we implement the teachings in our lives, and that our life becomes a practice of those implementations.
Lance, isn't that what an empowerment really does for us? For us to recognize that our body, speech, and mind is the body, speech, and mind of the Buddhas?
It is. It is. It is explaining it to us.
Mhm.
It is giving us a teaching on what to be looking for. It gives us an intellectualization of what it is. But then we have to have the experience of the transformation. We're being empowered to have that experience. To have that experience, we got to go through all the trial and error that it takes us to get to that realization, to that experience. So the empowerment is based on the idea that here is this set, book of characterizations of symbols and so on that everybody gets in the same way. And that with the intention, with the motivation from the Vajra master, from the Lama, who has himself self-empowered to be that particular deity. And then he is transmitting that to you. He is giving you that transmission into your heart. Now, what you do with that now is up to you. And that's your practice. So remember, going way back, Buddhism is a lifestyle. You know, we're Western people. Our lifestyle has been, mixed up with, some degree of religion and some degree of our jobs and some degree of our families and so on like that. And we've been able to skate with a lot of that. We've been able to accomplish a lot, but spiritually, we've been able to skate a lot. It hasn't been a vital part of our lives. Now with the Buddhism, we're seeing, yes, this is really important stuff. Just like we want to have enough money in the bank so that we can retire, that we've been preparing for that. Now we're saying, now you're going to have
Bodhicitta.
realization in the bank so that when you die, now you have a spiritual death. Not just a physical death or an intellectual death, but there's a spiritual component in the death. And we see that we are actually, there's this immortal point of view to look at this, which is Amitayus, the Buddha of immortality, the Buddha of immortal life, Buddha Amitayus. So for all these things come up, there's a Buddha for them. We're not alone in doing this. We don't have to create all this ourselves. We don't have to imagine all this ourselves. We have the genius of the Buddha and the masters that have come to help us to do this. All we need to do is to be able to wake it up, to recognize it and to be able to learn how to be able to remove the obscurations, the blockages that prevent us from knowing these things. So the four powers are then the remorse, the remedy or the antidote, the resolve, and the reliance on the practice, the reliance on everything that you've been doing, the reliance on your daily practice, the reliance on the empowerments that you've taken, and the practices you've done from them, and so on. The reliance on the system, the reliance on the Four Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the reliance on that, the intellectualization, and the skillful means of developing the practices, the method of how to do this. Remember when we were going through the jewel ornamental liberation? At first we talked about, the working basis, and we talked about the contributory master, and then we started talking about all the method stuff. How do we do all this? And here was all the method stuff spelled out for us. Okay, so now it says Vajrasattva meditation is a special practice for the purification of non-virtuous causes. So with confidence and without hesitation, enter into the Vajrasattva practice, have sincere remorse for evil deeds, confess them, and resolve not to create more negative karma, even at the risk of one's life. Not to create more negative karma, even at the risk of one's life. So one of the supreme questions that we have, is, well, if I have to protect myself and I kill somebody in the process because they're going to kill me, isn't that okay? And what we're saying is, you're taking someone's life to protect yours. You're placing yourself to be more important than that person. But you should know that you've had many lives and you got many more lives. You've got many shirts, many clothings in your car and your closet. And every day you take everything off, you take a shower and you put new clothes on. Well, you're just going to put a new body on. A new life. But I'm not going to tarnish that by taking someone's life to protect my own. Now, I know that is a huge thing to ask. And we all have to resolve ourselves to keep ourselves in a holy Buddha field so that the likelihood of our being confronted by someone who wants to kill us or harm us or our family as being very, very, very small and remote. But if we throw that out the window and we put ourselves in harm's way all the time, we have to take responsibility for that. But if we purify ourselves and don't put ourselves in that situation, and when we see a situation like that, we get out of the situation right away. If you see somebody coming at you and you're downtown or you're anywhere on the streets in Fairfax or wherever you might be, and you think this will never happen, but you think that there's a risk there, well, avoid the risk.
But Lance, isn't most of this karma or karma?
What, that it's there?
Or no, karma in the sense that even though we don't try to put ourselves in a situation where harm will come to us, but if it does, if it appears, I mean, even what Garshan was saying, once we recognize and realize that everything and anything that we see, touch, feel happens to us is our karma. And once we recognize that and we accept it, it becomes a lot easier to go about things. But when we fight it and try to I guess negate it and everything else, then it becomes more entangled and it becomes more difficult to resolve, and it becomes a big cluster muck.
What you're seeing are the causes. You're seeing the causes, which are the results of past karma. Now there are causes for the potential of new karma. So what's your new karma going to be? That's the question. Remember, the thing is to be able to not create new karma. That your karma should be neutralized. That we become just peaceful.
That's like the story that you always say, when someone asks, what were we in our past, what we are now, what will be in our future, what we are doing now.
It's your karma now to be wherever you're living, and it's relatively free and it's relatively safe. You've got that karma. You don't have the karma to be born in the Middle East, where you don't know if the IUD is going to go off or something like that.
Oh no, if you look at it, we've definitely won the human lottery. Being born, the situation we're born into, and where we're born in, and the.
But we still have karma. We can still wind up, getting cancer or getting heart attacks or strokes or things like that. And we have to be aware of those things. And what is the best protection for that? Is staying healthy, keeping a healthy body, keeping a healthy mind, having a healthy spiritual life and so on, getting those three-legged stool working. Live to be 100 years old in good health, in joy, in bodhicitta. It doesn't happen by accident. So it's our karma that is what Gotcha Rinpoche was speaking about, was our karma that's coming towards us are the causes for our potential to create new karma. What do we do with that? That's the responsibility that we have to take. So even at the risk of one's own life, we have to, put others in front of ourselves. We have to practice the 37 Bodhisattva practices. Nochu, Nangchen, Zengpo, and be able to practice that. Nochu Togme Zengpo, a little yellow book, by that Garchen Rinpoche makes it available to everybody. Now it's got a whole bunch of different covers on it, but for many, many, many years it was just this little yellow book. But I hope you all have a copy of it. If you don't, we'll send you a copy. I think one time or another I've sent you all a copy of that. And if you haven't read that, you should try and read it in one setting, in one sitting. Take an hour out and read it. If you want it on audio, we've got it recorded in 6, 7 different languages. What it is to be a bodhisattva. To be a bodhisattva means to transcend being a human being from the regard of attaching and having aversions to all these things, being tempted and by our ego, and always placing the benefit of others before us, in front of us. So then it says here at the bottom, last line, it says, then take refuge, cultivate the mind of enlightenment, recite the mantra, and meditate on emptiness as the antidote and reliance, the emptiness. So that's what the practices are teaching us, is showing us emptiness. The phenomenal nature, the emptiness of self, the emptiness of the multiplicity, to be able to transcend our attachments and our aversions to all this phenomenal nature. Cultivate the mind of enlightenment, which is Mahamudra. Mahamudra is the mind of enlightenment, or Dzogchen. Recite the mantra and recite and meditate on emptiness as the antidote and the reliance. So we do that over and over again, and it becomes second nature. It becomes our nature. That's our true nature. We talk about our true, that is our true nature. And now what we're doing is we're just resting all the other noise, all the other stuff. We purified it. It just falls away. Some of it we had to take a chisel and a hammer. Some of it we had to really break up. We had to be very forceful to do. But some of it was just like, as Gotchen Rinpoche would say, you're taking hot water and you're pouring it over an ice cube that melts into the water. So we didn't get very far tonight, but I think we got very far. Didn't get far in the book, but I think we explained some things that are very, very, very important, fundamental things. New light on which to look at, what it is that we're doing, why we're doing it, and how we do it. Remember, I've talked many times about what, how, and why, or what, how, what, why, and how. The why is very important, and I think that sometimes that's a mistake that a lot of teachers make, is they don't tell us why we need to do things. They just say, this is the way you got to do it. They're more didactic. This is the way you got to do it. But it's so important to know why. If you know why, then you'll start doing it on your own. You'll be more motivated to do it rather than, I got to do this because the teacher told me to do it. I want to do it. So any comments, any more questions? We'll end this here tonight. We'll go back to our dedications and end the session. So, and we'll start next week. We'll pick this up, but we're going to go through this. We're going to read this again. And if it takes us 2 or 3 or 4 weeks to get through Vajrasattva, we'll do that. Vajrasattva was so important. Okay. Sorry, I got 2 books laid on top of each other. Okay, so we go back to the red book, and we go to, this is where I got myself messed up. Sorry, just a moment.
Page 32.
Yeah, I'm looking for page 33. What I do with it? All right, well, let me see. I probably can do this by memory. Okay. So now we are doing the protection fence, right? So now we're whatever we have gained, whatever wisdom, whatever skillful means we have, now we're protecting it within ourselves. And anyone who approaches, we welcome them to be able to come through, but they have to be able to be worthy themselves to be able to enter through the protection fence. So we visualize the circle of Dakinis and Yoginis. Om I Lili Ang Kakagana Zaza Zazana Dada Dadana Dada Dadana Baba Baba Ma Yawalawa Sa Saha Kraja Soha Oma Lili Ang Kakagana Zaza Zazana Dada Dadana Dada Dadana Baba Baba Ma Yawalawa Sa Saha Krasa Soha Oma a I u ri li o ang a ka ga na za na da na da na ba ma ya ba sa ha krasa so ha. Omi dame hetu pabwa hetu tagan tadagato he tagaso yunarada able body mashamani so ha. Omi dame hetu pabwa hetu tagan tadagato he tagaso yunarada able body mashamani so ha. Omi dame hetu pabwa hetu tagan tadagato he tagaso yunarada able body mashamani so ha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manu Palaya, Vajrasattva Dhanupa, Judadedo Mebawa, Zudogaya Mebawa, Supokaya Mebawa, Anorecto Mebawa, Zara City Mebaya, Zara Karma Zatu Me, Zandria Guru Hong, Ha Ha Ho, Bhagawan, Zara Tadagata Bazabami, Maji Bazu Bhavama, Samaya, Savaha. Om Vajrasattva Samaya, Manu Palaya, Vajrasattva Dhanupa, Judadedo Mebawa, Zudogaya Mebawa, Supokaya Mebawa, Anorecto Mebawa, Zara City Mebaya, Zara Karma Zatu Me. Sazadriya Guru Hong Ha Ha Ho Bhagawan Zara Dada Gada Bazabami Maji Baji Baba Ma Samaya Zavaha Om Bajuzawa Zamaya Manubalaya Bajuzawa Danova Judadedo Mebawa Zudogayo Mebawa Zubogayo Mebawa Nuraktu Mebawa Zara Zidi Mebayata Zara Karma Suzume Zazadriya Guru Hong Ha Ha Ho Bhagawan Zara Dada Gada Bazabami Maji Baji Baba Ma Samaya Zatwaha. This is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the five families in the three times have destroyed defilement and lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. This is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the five families in the three times who have destroyed all defilements lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. This is it. The Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the five families in the three times who have destroyed all defilements lead to equipoise of the enlightened mind. Teata, pensa juvao, bodanezo, deto bedrio, 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 bodanezo. Teata, pensa juvao, bodanezo, ha. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the peaceful and wrathful deities is the Buddha. And the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the peaceful and wrathful deities is the Buddha. The enlightened body, speech, and mind of the peaceful and wrathful deities is the Buddha. Om Ruru Daru Mugi Mugi Zoam 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 Ruru Daru Mugi Mugi Zoha. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment. The body, speech, and mind of the body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. The body, speech, and mind of the Buddha is the cause for enlightenment of all sentient beings. Om Dai Dai Ben Dai Zoha 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 Dai Dai Ben Dai Zoha. The bliss and strength in the heart center of the Buddha is equipoise. The bliss and strength in the heart center of the Buddha is equipoise. The bliss and strength in the heart center of the Buddha is equipoise. Om Hanubashabari dies 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 Om Om Hanubashabari dies Om Hanubashabari dies Soha. Om Ah Hong 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 The objects of refuge dissolve into the main figure, Vajradhara, and he dissolves into your crown. Kagyu Kornam So Wodang Deyang Wudu Serne Rang La Timpagyo. Dorje Chang, Talopa, Naropa, Marpa, Milarepa, Dharma Lord Gampopa, Pagma Drupa, Lord Drikung, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessing of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue may I achieve the all-knowing state. May I all travel on the waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, cross the ocean of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellent and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessing of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessing of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Drikung Ratnashri, who is omniscient Lord of the Dharma, master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, meditation, until the end of samsara. Glorious, holy, venerable, precious, kind root and lineage lamas, divine assembly of yidams and assemblies of Buddhas, Bodhisattvas, Yogins, Yoginis, and Dakinis, dwelling in the 10 directions, please hear my prayer. May the virtues collected in the 3 times by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, by the innate word of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teaching, may the mother, sorry about that. 4 causes of samsara, rebirth as a Sravaka or Pratyeka Buddha. May all mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me and mine, obstructors who harm, misleading Mars, and the hordes of demons, experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. By the power of this vast root of virtue, may I benefit all beings with my body, speech, and mind. May the afflictions of desire, hatred, ignorance, arrogance, and jealousy not arise in my mind. May attachment to fame, reputation, wealth, honor, and concern for this life not arise for even a moment. May my mind stream be moistened by loving kindness, compassion, and bodhicitta, and through that may I become a spiritual master with good qualities equal to the infinity of space. May I gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra in this very life. May the torment of suffering not arise even at the time of my death. May I not die with negative thoughts. May I not die confused by wrong view. May I not experience an untimely death. May I die joyfully and happily in the great luminosity of the mind as such and the pervading clarity of Dharmata. May I, in any case, gain the supreme attainment of Mahamudra at the time of death or in the bardo. Om Ah Hom. Om Ah Hom. Om Ah Hom. May my body, speech, and mind become inseparable with the body, speech, and mind of all the enlightenments. Thank you very much. Does everybody have a copy of the Vajrasattva? Because I'm going to have to mail something else to you, and snail mail. Hopefully it'll get there in a week. So if you're missing anything that I can print for you and send to you, I'll be glad to. So tell me if you need it.
I needed what I got in the mail from you was chants. It was sound.
Does anybody else need the written Vajrasattva? Okay. All right, and I'm going to send some picture cards that I think you'll enjoy. Okay, very good. Thank you all very much. Gary, were you able to open that up? Were you able to go to the Google Drive that had those audio files on there?
Yes, and I heard them.
Okay, good.
I was going to ask you about those too, Lance. You sent something out by oh, that's right. It was by email.
Yes.
The chants were by, I guess it was sent by email. Okay.
It was sent by email, and it was a link to get to the Google Drive that has these audio files on them, which are the recordings of Kenshin Rinpoche and Kempo Soltram Tenzin reciting the Ngondro prayers. Okay, tomorrow night we're going to do the second Milarepa film. So hopefully you'll join us for that. I think you'll find it very interesting, very good. And he spends a little bit more time here talking about the time that he was a black magician and his redemption, what he wanted to do, and so on. And so it's a little bit of a slicker production, but it's a good production, and it's very good. So I think you'll enjoy that very much. So, okay.
Kempo and I talked about the two films. He liked the one tomorrow night much better than the one last week.
Okay. Okay. All right. Anything else?
Good night, all.
All right. Michael, thank you. I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yes, Michael. It was great seeing
Stay
you.
strong. Yes. Eat.
Good to see you, Michael.
Get plenty of rest. Take your medicine. Do medicine Buddha practice.
Oh, I would like to also just say this. I found out just tonight that a man who was a Christian minister, but also became a Zen priest named Kagyu down in Norfolk passed away. And so I'd just like to remember that as we, it's part of our dedication to practice tonight.
All right. Thank you very much. What's his name?
Kagyu, K-A-C-U.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. All right. Amanda, Gary, Michael, Tom, Curtis, thank you all. Adrian, thank you all very much.